Bronson Woodruff. We have new information in the school shooting at a Wisconsin Christian school. A 15-year-old girl has been identified as the shooter at Abundant Life Christian School. Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes shared updates on what his team has learned.
The shooter has now been identified as 15-year-old Natalie Rupnow, who went by the name Samantha. She was a student at the school, and evidence suggests she died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Police say shortly before 11 a.m. local time on Monday, a teenage girl and student armed with a handgun started shooting during a study hall session. A teacher died, a fellow teenage student died, and 6 others were wounded. 2 students remain in life-threatening critical condition, according to Fox. Police were in the school within 3 minutes after the first 911 call, which came from a second-grade student. Barbara Wires, Director of Elementary and School Relations at Abundant Life Christian School, said community members are holding on to their faith.
We also have a very strong faith in our community that in spite of tragedy, God is working, and we believe that God is good in everything and that he turns beauty for ashes. I had a number of families who mentioned that to me, that this wasn't a surprise to God and that he's going to do something mighty with it. And so we're holding on to those words and we're continuing to believe and trust in him.
The investigation continues into why this happened. A mass grave has been found in Syria containing at least 100,000 bodies. Fox's Jonathan Savage reports.
100,000 is said to be a conservative estimate, and the US-based Syrian Emergency Task Force says that's just one of 5 mass graves it's uncovered. Hundreds of thousands of Syrians are estimated to have been killed since 2011. That's when leader Bashar al-Assad's crackdown on protests grew into a full-scale civil war. His father, who ruled the country before him, was also accused of unjustly killing his people. Syria's prison system was notorious for torture and executions. Jonathan Savage, Fox News.
House lawmakers are receiving a classified briefing on the mysterious drone sightings that have been popping up all over the country, including in the Northeast. Florida Congressman Greg Steube said on Fox Business's Mornings with Maria he hopes federal officials have gotten reliable info about these drones and insists the American people deserve to know what these things are.
Obviously, if they're friendly or if they're law enforcement or if there's, you don't want people shooting down drones that are being used for an official purpose. If they're commercial aircraft, obviously the knowledge to the American people is important for people to know what these things are flying around their houses.
Federal officials have insisted the drones pose no security threat to the U.S. and that most of these cases are just misidentification, with people mistaking planes and atmospheric phenomena for drones. President-elect Donald Trump has invited China's President Xi Jinping to his inauguration. Joining Fox and Friends First, the president-elect's pick for White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says Trump wants open communication with world leaders.
Offering this invitation to President Xi is a sign of his willingness to have an open dialogue with all foreign nations around this world, whether they're an adversary, a competitor, or an ally.
During the election, VP Kamala Harris and other Democrats attacked the president-elect for praising authoritarian leaders like Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un. Another one of President-elect Donald Trump's nominees is meeting with lawmakers on Capitol Hill today. Fox's Peter Ducey reports.
It's RFK Jr.'s turn to try and walk down the long hallways of the Senate office buildings with 25 microphones in his face. And there is a lot of interest in the different ways that access to vaccines could change if a man with a long record of being skeptical of vaccine side effects is in charge of Health and Human Services. Kennedy has a fan in Bernie Sanders, at least when it comes to Kennedy's position that the food supply is contributing to obesity and diabetes in the U.S. Sanders is not ruling out a meeting with Kennedy, and he is not yet signaling how he'll vote.
Republicans will have a 53-47 Senate majority next session, meaning they can only afford to lose a few votes when confirming nominees. That's all for this hour of American Family News. You can find more news online at afn.net. For American Family News, I'm Bronson Woodruff.
Streaming.afa.net has now become AFA Stream, and you can find it at stream.afa.net. You see, we removed the letters ing. Our experts have determined that eliminating those 3 keystrokes, multiplied over hundreds of thousands of AFA Stream visits, could reduce the national debt and maybe increase the gross domestic product. AFA Stream, formerly streaming.afa.net. Improvements to the economy are purely theoretical. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. Today's Tuesday, December the 17th, 2024. And in studio with me is Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Howdy there, Tim.
Good morning, Chris Woodward.
Good morning.
And in Kansas City, Kansas, is our good friend Ray Pritchard. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Tim. How you doing today?
Welcome home.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
I say welcome home to the mainland here, to the U.S. You and y'all went on. You and Marlene went on a little trip, right?
Yeah, we in August we celebrated our 50th anniversary, but schedule was too busy, and so to take a trip. But we took a cruise about a week and a half ago, a 10-day cruise from Miami down through the Caribbean and through the Panama Canal, and flew back from Panama City, Panama to Miami and back home. Let's put it this way, Tim. Cruise things aside, a week ago yesterday on the cruise ship in the Panama Canal, it was about 90 degrees. It was T-shirts and shorts weather. And this morning in Kansas City, it's 27 degrees. As we say, I do not receive that.
Right. Big difference. Well, let me ask you this. So you went you boarded in Miami.
That's right.
And then we went from where to where to where? Do you mind telling?
Miami to the Dominican Republic. Okay. Very nice. Then Curacao, which is down near Venezuela. Beautiful. The Dutch settled those islands. And then Aruba, also very nice. And then we sailed on over to the Panama Canal. And, I just got to say, Marlene and I have been cruising 6 or 7 times, but this by far was the most amazing experience to go through those locks. Our cruise ship went through the locks that were built in 1910, 11, 12, and dedicated in 1914. 110 years old.
Wow.
Working as perfectly today as they did back then. And it took us 10 hours, Tim. 44 miles. Took us 10 hours to go from the east side to the west side, from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And you get into those locks and you see the water rising you up, and then on the backside of it, another lock, you coming down, you see the water going down. It's one of the wonders of the modern world. And the only other thing I would say is the next day, our last day, we took the Panama Canal Railway from the west side back to the east side, and that's cut right through the jungle. And that's the closest you can get to what it was 120 years ago. And you just think to yourself, 20,000, 30,000, nobody really knows, 20 to 30,000 workers died because of, yellow fever, malaria, hacking their way through the swamps and through the jungle. It's a miraculous thing to go through the Panama Canal. It is one of the wonders of the modern world. And let me say to all of our friends, if you're thinking about going on a cruise, that's a good one.
That would be, I'd love to see that. Have you ever been there, Fred? Or?
I've been to Panama, never through the canal, though. But Ray was talking to us a little earlier this morning. The wait to get through, because so many ships are in line to go through that. And you had to wait. Your ship had to wait quite a while, didn't it?
As we came up on the Atlantic side, and it was before dawn. Okay, so because we started to go through just about as the sun was coming up, but you could see the lights stretching out into the Atlantic Ocean. Those weren't lights from the shore. Those were ships that were lined up as far as the eye could see to go through from east to west. And then when you get to the west side, you see all these containers, a lot of them from China and from Asia, who have made the journey over. So you got to get your place in line, and there's somebody behind you, and there's a great big ship in front of you. And I don't know what they do if somebody breaks down in the lock. I mean, maybe that happens sometimes, but you got to get your place.
How many miles is it from one side to the other?
About 44 miles.
You said that. I'm sorry. So 40 miles. Now, okay, so is it, sorry for my ignorance here, is it one way, or is it two lanes? One going and one.
It's two-way. The locks they built 110 years ago are two-way. So as we're coming through from west to east, And Tim, the clearance is about 4 feet.
Yeah,
about 4 feet between the side of the ship and the side of the lock.
Keep your arm inside the ship at all times.
That's exactly right. And then there's another huge container ship coming through from the other direction.
So before the Panama Canal was built, then the ships, such that they were and that they tried, had to go down on the tip of South America, right?
That's exactly right. That was the only way. If you started in New York and you were going to San Francisco, you were going to make a 15,000-mile trip down to the bottom. What is the Cape? Is it Cape Horn? I'm not.
I think you're right. It's on the. Is it Argentina down there at the tip?
That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
You got to go down around that cape, and then you got to come up the other side.
Yeah, you're not too far from the South Pole.
No, you're not.
When you get down there that far. Well, yeah, you're right. Think about it. That's probably one of the greatest invention's not the right word exactly, but
engineering feats.
Yeah, in the certainly in the 20th century.
Yes, and it was built 1910.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm.
And and it's still working.
Yeah.
I wonder if they built it today, whether they'd be that successful.
I'm going to say no, because my generation has to look up YouTube for everything on how to build something.
YouTube.
They had to make the measurements down there by hand, right? And they didn't have computers and phones and all the stuff we just take for granted.
Yeah.
Had to write the stuff down, had to ship it up to the foundries, say in West Virginia and Pittsburgh, and then the big parts of the locks and all that had to be assembled, disassembled, shipped down, reassembled, and they had to work perfectly, and they did from day one.
Wow.
Yeah, glad I wasn't on that committee. I said, fellas,
it's not happening.
This ain't gonna happen, my
That's
friends. Let's just all go home. But to the credit of that generation, who know, it was probably an international accomplishment, although probably Americans played a big part in it. But wow. So then you got on an airplane, flew back to Miami, and flew back to Kansas City.
That's exactly right.
You. All right. Well, welcome home. That is quite a journey y'all went on there to celebrate your 50th wedding anniversary. Chris, what's leading the news?
Well, while we're praising God for Ray's safe return, we need to lift up our fellow Americans in Madison, Wisconsin. And I say that because yesterday there was a school shooting at a Christian school in Wisconsin in the Madison area. This is the Abundant Life Christian School. And authorities have identified the shooter as a 15-year-old girl by the name of Natalie Rupnow. Police say she killed a teacher and a teenager before turning the gun on herself. She also wounded 6 others in Monday's shooting at Abundant Life Christian School. Tim, this broke really right after the show ended and dominated the news cycle for the rest of the today. Obviously, it's still
yesterday,
a story.
You mean?
Yes,
the show
sir.
ended yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So you have how many dead?
2 people dead as of right now, but there are 6 wounded, 2 of them in critical condition.
Well, do we know why the young lady did that?
We do not know exactly why. There has been a lot of speculation on places like X, formerly known as Twitter. Andy Ngo he's a journalist, freelance journalist. Andy Ngo was among the first, if not the first, reporters out there to identify the shooter. And he said at that time, quote, "The shooter does not identify as trans." That was one of the knee-jerk reactions that people had yesterday, that maybe this young lady was upset about something being at the Christian school there and wanted to retaliate. Yeah. Steve Deace did respond to those reports today on Jenna Ellis in the Morning, and Steve Deace told Jenna, "I'm not going there yet with the trans issue." Clip 2.
I am not going to rule out yet a trans connection. I'm well aware of Andy's work. He's done a lot of great work, but no human is infallible. Someone I know who is one of the board members at Moms for Liberty, lives in Wisconsin, has published some information that seems to indicate the opposite of that. So I think either way, number one, I think given the trend line we have seen with trans terrorism, I think we are probably just better off assuming that is the case as a default until they prove otherwise, especially because we just know authorities lie about this. Madison, Wisconsin is the most left-wing enclave in that entire state. Yesterday, a police spokesman went in front of a camera and said he could not confirm the gender of the shooter. So even, I mean, literally, you could just look at the shooter's dead body and confirm a gender, unless you're assuming that there are things that could be done to alter someone's gender, and therefore that you're buying into that premise, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Now, I'm not saying it was a trans issue. I'm just presenting it as the news guy here. That is one of the thoughts out there today.
Well, it's sad and tragic, whatever the case may be. But, you know, you live, as I said before, you live in a country of 340 million people. You know, bad things are going to happen, even in the safest environment sometimes, Fred.
Yeah, we've a number of reports yesterday. The school practiced regular responses to these kinds of things. In fact, the first responders were practicing at a place not far from this school when the call came into 911. By the way, I think it was a little girl in grade 2 at the school called 911.
Yeah.
So they had practiced these procedures. But, you know, as Chris mentioned, it is a Christian school, Abundant Life Christian School. And the director at the school is a woman by the name of Barbara Weirs, I believe it is. And she had this to say last evening, cut number 1.
We also have a very strong faith in our community that in spite of tragedy, God is working, and we believe that God is good in everything and that he turns beauty for ashes. I had a number of families who mentioned that to me, that this wasn't a surprise to God and that he's going to do something mighty with it. And so we're holding on to those words, and we're continuing to believe and trust in him.
So as Chris said, we need to remember these folks in prayer today. It's a large Christian school, 420, I think, students at this Christian school. It is K through, I think, grade 12, and well-established. We don't know yet the motivation behind why this young lady, 15 years old, would do this. There's some indication that the two that she killed were targeted. It was a teacher and another student, and then the shooter turned the gun on herself. So this will come out in time, I believe, as to what the motivation was. But as Steve Deese was saying, if it was trans, if it was, as was the case up in Nashville at that Christian school back a few years ago, authorities are likely to try to hide that as a motivation, if indeed that is the case.
Right. It just seems to me that, well, of course, we don't know the whole story here, as Fred's talking about. We'll know more in the coming days. But oftentimes the parents, guardians, the friends, they know something's up.
Right.
With somebody who's troubled. They say things.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They write things.
Sure.
Their personality changes. There's a tip-off. Go ahead.
Well, one of the questions that's hanging out here, a 15-year-old girl.
Right.
How'd she get the weapon?
You never hear of a girl doing that anyway.
No, it's unusual situation, right? Very unusual. How did she get the gun?
Right.
How did she get a gun and the ammo without her parents knowing about it? There's some broken pieces here that we don't know. I did a little investigation into this school. It's a highly regarded school. It's, as Fred, as you said, 400 students. And there are, someone said, virtually every church in Madison would have had a student or two in that school. So there's a great need for prayer and a lot of unanswered questions. But I want to know, how did her parents not know anything? Did all this happen under their nose and they saw nothing at all?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions that probably be answered in the next few days.
You know, and as I guess we have come to expect, Democrats, including the White House, reacting to this, went right to the old gun violence, that we need more gun laws. Without an investigation to try to figure out why this 15-year-old girl did this, they go right to, this problem would be resolved if we had stricter gun laws.
Well, you can't take guns to school. It's against the law. We have gun laws.
Yes.
But it's already illegal.
Right, it's already illegal.
Yes. And that's the point.
I mean, what more do you want?
Yeah.
What more do you want?
And she used a 9mm pistol.
It's also illegal to kill people.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right.
So I mean, she violated multiple laws that are already on the books.
Yes.
Unless you want just a complete police state like China, a communist police state, then if you're going to live in freedom, then you're going to have, you're going to have things happen sometimes that we regret seeing. I guess I should say. But yeah, she already violated several laws. The killer did. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. What's the name of that school? We can't
Abundant Life Christian School.
Mm-hmm. Established 1978.
How many students, by the way? 400, I think I read.
Just over 400.
That's the first. Well, now you had the shooting. The Nashville shooting was in a Christian school, right?
That is 2023.
But that was a young woman who was getting who had gone to that school 10 years ago or so,
right,
and was acting out her hatred toward Christians. Is that right?
That is what we know.
But the police held the manifesto forever.
Yes,
forever, and that was a huge issue. Why aren't
they
you
didn't
telling us?
Because they didn't want. It didn't fit the narrative,
mm-hmm.
and they didn't want the public to know.
That's the thing.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Many of the Democrats that run out there and say we need to take all the guns, we need gun control, all these things. Many of these same people are completely fine with abortion and killing a baby just because it's a mere inconvenience.
I would just say this about the, quote, gun control issue. We have all the laws we need on the books right now, probably too many. And I'm talking about relative to guns, okay? So to me, when these liberals and these Democrats start talking about gun control after every shooting that happens, it's like that's to me that they're living in a fantasy world, mm-hmm. because what they're suggesting, this is my opinion, is never going to happen. Okay, Americans, the vast majority of Americans disagree with that view of taking everybody's guns up. Now they would say, most of them would say, we're not talking about taking everybody's guns up. We're talking about, I don't know, controlling gun shows and having registration, more registration, and all these kinds of things. But the ultimate objective is to be like other countries around the world where you just don't have guns at all, and that's just not going to happen in America. Never will. And so when they do these trite, okay, we need gun control after every incident, every shooting, it's just water off a duck's back. It doesn't mean anything.
No,
frankly.
But they're playing to their audience, the
right.
folks on the left.
Right. Well, move to a state. If just go ahead and move to a state that has the strictest gun controls ever, which I imagine Wisconsin has some pretty strict gun controls. Huh? But California and New York, just move there.
Yeah.
There's no.
Yeah.
And another thing, and I mentioned this before, these same people, when police are involved in a shooting and the police use their guns, these same people don't say, well, we got to stop gun violence. No, they say, we got to defund the police. Uh-huh. So I want to say, well, which is it? Is it the individual pulling the trigger, or is it the gun gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to find somebody to shoot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because these same people want to exonerate the thugs out on the street who are using guns in Chicago and New York. Oftentimes they want to say that's gun violence. Mm-hmm. But when the police are involved, they say, no, that's police pulling the trigger violence. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying?
Police involved shooting.
So which is it? One is it? All right, so you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Next story, Chris.
The mystery continues over those drones.
The drone mystery continues?
It does. It does. And part of the reason why it's a mystery is because we have people in the federal government telling us things like, there's nothing to see here. For example, John Kirby, oftentimes trucked out there for a spokesman for Joe Biden, basically said, there's nothing to see here, folks. Clip 10.
You hear all of these officials. You've heard a lot of concern, a lot of coverage. Where are you tonight on this?
As we look at the information we've got, Brett, and we've now examined some 5,000 different sightings, we've added detection capabilities, additional observers. As you and I stand here today, to date, our assessment is that this is lawful, legal, commercial, hobbyist, and even law enforcement aircraft activity. Some of it's manned, some of it's unmanned. We absolutely acknowledge that a lot of these are probably drones, but they're flying legally, and it is legal to fly drones in non-restricted airspace as long as you're registered with the FAA. And there's thousands and thousands of these kinds of flights every single day. I think there's more than 1 million drones that are registered with the FAA just in the United States alone.
Well, you don't believe him, Fred?
Well, John Kirby had to come back this morning and withdraw some of the. He said manned and unmanned drones. There's no such thing as a little man sitting in a drone flying.
Even they are. They're green, Fred.
That's right. Little tiny people.
They're called green men.
Yeah,
that's right.
So
Martians.
He had to withdraw that comment. But here's the thing. We now have at least 2 or 3 incidents where these drones, whoever's controlling them, has flown these drones over military bases. That is against federal law. And Kirby seems to be just saying, just dismissing that. Well, if you're flying over a military base, they have the authority to shoot these things down. Kirby was asked about this, and he says, okay, well, what kind of weapon are we going to use? I don't care what kind of weapon you use. Somebody who has deliberately or accidentally allowed their drone, which some of these drones we've been told are as big as cars, to fly over military bases, the military base should be shooting those down. There should not be any question about it.
Yeah.
I mean, they cannot contact the pilot somewhere on the ground and say, get that vehicle out of here, because they don't know who it is. I'm just very suspicious of the almost cavalier attitude that our federal government has towards this. Back 10 days ago when we first started talking about this, there was a Coast Guard vessel off the coast of New Jersey who said we had 12 of these things following us. I mean, there's
Is this a nightly occurrence, Ray? I mean,
yes, evidently, and it has been for weeks. But okay, guys. So New Jersey, right? So New Jersey. Why New Jersey? Why not further up the coast toward Massachusetts?
Well, Martians have always wanted to take New Jersey.
It's the Garden State.
No, I'm just kidding.
Or why not Virginia or North Carolina? What's going on?
Yeah. I don't. Well, nobody's been hurt so far, right? That we know of. I mean, there's been no airplanes haven't collided with the drones or anything like that. But now what he's saying is that's all. What did he say? Just they're lawful drones flying around, and anyway.
Yep.
So
well,
you're not buying it though, Fred.
No, we did have an incident where a couple of drones flew into the airspace at Logan Airport in Boston a few days ago. They arrested 2 guys there. Another guy escaped on a boat. So they did take action at Logan against the operators of the drones.
Okay, if a drone's flying out there, so does the law enforcement have the ability to know whose drone it is?
No.
Okay. I just don't know. Is a drone quote registered? I'm just asking.
The drone is registered, but unlike an airplane that has people on board where you can talk to them, these drones do not. We have no idea where the operators are.
And the pictures. There have been a couple of pictures of drones that were the size of an SUV.
Yes.
There's not a 16-year-old guy who's going to be able to afford
Are you serious?
That big.
Big as an SUV?
And Mayorkas said they were coming from convenience stores.
Like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
Toot sweet. Meet up, Scotty.
Oh, man. So it's every night. You just go outside with your...
Evidently.
Get outside with your coffee and watch the drone show, huh?
Yeah.
All right. We'll be back momentarily. Jenna Ellis will be joining us. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
He grew up on his father's farm in Ontario Province in Canada. He did his share of work to help meet the family expenses. His jobs varied from selling such farm products as butter and eggs to working in a grocery store. And, of course, he had his routine farm chores. By the time he was 28 years of age, he decided to venture out on his own. So he set out for Chicago with the sum total of his life savings, $60. Once in Chicago, he began the pursuit of a dream to build a big cheese business. He bought himself a wagon to haul cheese in and began buying and selling the dairy product. He was allowed to purchase the cheese on credit and pay for it from his earnings. Times were not easy, and at the end of one year, he took stock of his business. He learned that he was $3,000 in debt, and the chances of his paying it off were slim. It was a rather disappointing year for the cheese merchant, for he'd spent a year working from early in the morning till late at night, and now, despite all the long hours and hard work, his credit was gone, and it appeared that his business and dreams were gone also. Driving his horse toward home one day, he was talking to the animal, while also talking to himself. He asked Patty, the horse who had been named by the young man, what the trouble was. "What's the matter with us, Patty?" Well, strangely enough, an answer came so loud and clear that the young man stopped the wagon to see if anybody else was around. Here was the answer. "You're trying to leave God out." It was a rather unusual answer for the young man. He wasn't known to be a real religious person. But he continued his conversation by saying, "Patty, if God can do any better with this business than we have, he can have it." Well, shortly after that, the man asked God to be his partner. He soon joined a church and began teaching a Sunday school class. And things started getting better in the cheese business, too. Before long, he discovered a way to preserve cheese, something which had been impossible to do before. And with the discovery, his business boomed. He soon had to hire another helper, and then another, and soon he had more than 100 employees, and then more than 200. And soon he had 1,000, and eventually the business grew to employ many thousand. From the day that he made God his partner in business until the day he died, this man found business good. He gave generously to his church and to other good causes, and he was always wishing to share God's love with someone else. So the next time you eat any Kraft cheese, remember this story about James Kraft. And I think he would want us to go on to say that the wisest move he ever made was taking God in as a partner.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Jeremiah 29:13.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back. Excuse me there. Welcome back, everybody, to today's issues. That's the name of this show right here on American Family Radio. I'm Tim with Fred, Chris, and Ray. We thank you for listening to American Family Radio. Jenna Ellis joins us now. Jenna is host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning, heard 7 to 8 o'clock Central Time each weekday morning here on American Family Radio. And she's been covering the New Jersey drone story. Good morning, Jenna.
Good morning. And I can't believe it's been almost 2 years that I have hosted Jenna Ellis in the Morning. It's been really wonderful. So
that's right. You're coming up on your anniversary here, right?
I am.
Well,
yep,
congratulations.
Thank you. So looking forward to the next the next 20, if the Lord tarries.
So had you done any live radio before, hosted your own show before you came on AFR?
I had done a lot of live radio as a guest, but not hosted my own radio show. So I've done the podcast in the past.
Yes, you did podcast before radio.
Yeah, but it's very different, and I love radio. It's actually my favorite medium because you can have deeper conversations. It's live covering news, and as Sandy Rios told me as I took over for her, of course, regular listeners will know she was my predecessor. She told me you're going to end up absolutely loving mornings, and mornings can be beautiful. And I have found that to be absolutely true.
That's my motto in life right there. Mornings are beautiful. That's what don't you, Fred? I get up every day. Fred goes at 3:30 every day.
If he sleeps in.
Hey, that's a good motto. So, Jenna, what's all this? Have you talked to anybody who knows for sure what in the world is going on up here with these drones in New Jersey? It's just innocent drone
No, and
activity,
in
or
fact,
what?
I
Right.
had Representative Tom Tiffany from Wisconsin, and he's in Congress on my show on Monday morning, and he said that even members of Congress don't know, and they're asking questions of the Biden administration that has not really been forthcoming. And that was actually shocking to me, that even members of Congress are not at least getting briefed on this. We know that Representative Van Drew from New Jersey had said, at least according to his interview on Fox, that he was told by sources that he didn't disclose that this was from Iran. But then I had a former intelligence agent, Scott Eulinger, who's a regular on my show on This Morning, and he doesn't obviously know for sure. I don't think anybody, probably not even the Biden administration, knows for sure. But his theory that I actually find very persuasive is that this is kind of one of two things. He thinks that this either is a government testing and training exercise that they can't disclose, that they're kind of far behind in terms of piloting a lot of these drones. We know that we're very far behind in artificial intelligence, some of this other stuff. In fact, the AI intelligence report just dropped. Jim Jordan is going to be joining me tomorrow on that to talk about how crazy that report is for a variety of reasons. But then the other thing that Scott Eulinger said as well that he thinks may be happening is that this could just be a total psyop, where because of the mass hysteria, because of the interest in this, that the government is sort of conditioning a response to where we are essentially ready to give up some of our rights and liberties in exchange for protections. And we saw that same exact type of psyop during the COVID narrative, and how people were very ready to say, yes, let's have laws that mandate this experimental vaccine, and let's take away some of our medical freedom and privacy issues. And so that's his best guess, and I find that very persuasive.
So my wife, Allison, the other day, she had her analysis of this, and she said, well, they better hope they stay in New Jersey. If they come down south, you're going to be shot out of the sky.
They will be. No hesitation.
God bless the Second Amendment. I have to say,
That's
I
what
love
somebody
the
will
South.
say after they shoot it. Yeah.
What's just crazy to me is how long this has been going on. What are we on, 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that? And
at
it's
least.
like a nightly Christmas show. Well, ladies and gentlemen, all right, kids, load up the car. We're going to Sonic, and then we're going out to watch the drone show.
Yeah.
Here out in New Jersey. It just seems crazy to me. But yeah, I've wondered if it is our own military. Seems like to me that's probably going to leak out. But let's just say it doesn't. Why would you keep doing something over and over again, night after night after night, that's going to draw so much attention and scrutiny, and people putting camera? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's why I find Scott's theory about this being a government psyop actually very persuasive, because that would explain why the Biden administration is suggesting, like, they're being very vague. They're not actually forthcoming with information. Nobody knows what's going on, and yet this continues to happen. And Scott was also saying that it's that the drones just leave, and they're basically done for the night right at 11 p.m. according to the reports. And to be consistently on that type of schedule, just seems very odd if you're wanting to do something that covert or there's some other explanation.
Yeah. All right, you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. So, Jenna, the Trump administration is set to come into office, when will that take place? You know,
when the new administration.
Yes. When does day one of the new administration start?
Noon on January 20th, and that is per the U.S. Constitution. That is when the peaceful exchange of power happens.
Okay. Do you think is there one or two nominees that's been out there in the news that you think may not make it through the confirmation process, or you think, including Pete Hegseth, you think they're all going to clear the hurdle? Or
Well, I hope that they do, because with the Trump mandate that also included the popular vote, by the way, which a lot of the left is very upset about. I mean, it's very clear that the majority of Americans want Trump, want his mandate, want his America First policies, and so he should get the nominees that he selects, including Pete Hegseth. And and I know him personally from my days at Fox News, and I have to say, he's always been a really stand-up guy, great guy as far as my interactions with him, But I think that they're kind of trying, the left and maybe to an extent some of the Republicans, even in the Senate, are kind of trying to Kavanaugh him, because there's a lot of these, he said, she said, vague accusations that are trying to taint his nomination that really have nothing to do with his fitness for the job at hand. Because once it came out that, he's not just a Fox News host, he actually has substantive experience that does qualify him, then immediately they went after the drama and the smut. And so I hope that he clears that nomination, and I hope that the rest do as well. I think Pam Bondi is an excellent nominee for Attorney General. Quite frankly, I'm a lot more excited about her than I was for Matt Gaetz, because I think he would have had some problems with that, as much as he's been a great champion for America First. I think that she has a proven track record as the Florida Attorney General and will sail through, and I think a lot of his nominees will be confirmed.
What about RFK Jr. Is it Health and Human Services? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Which is a cabinet level position. You think he'll make it?
I think so, because I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Democrats actually voted for him, potentially thinking that, he may bring in some Democrats and some of their colleagues into HHS, which, is maybe a little bit of a problem for conservatives like us. But I think that he could kind of play it a little down the middle. And so that may be a potential option. But I hope that he is confirmed, and I hope that he really gets to work on a lot of the things, especially with the FDA and some of these health things that he's been talking about that America really needs in terms of a reorganization of government regulations.
Fred, then Ray, and then Chris next story.
Jenna, on somewhat a lighter note, it has been reported in the last 24 hours in Washington that Kamala Harris is considering another run for the presidency in 28. Democrats have not
I got a
responded.
Scooby-Doo for you right there.
Is she a legend in her own mind? Or
I think she absolutely should run, given what we saw in 2024. That would set up the best possible conservative to win in yet another landslide. So I am all for it. Democrats, go for it. And set her up to fail again, because they keep, if you've ever watched the movie Mean Girls, which I know is totally a pop culture reference, and there's this one high school girl that keeps saying, "Oh, that's so fetch," and everybody's like, "Stop trying to make that happen." And that's what they're doing to Kamala Harris. They're trying, stop trying to make fetch happen with Kamala Harris.
Ray,
Jenna, I want to circle to a crucial question here. Mr. Biden, or somebody in his name, is going nuts with these pardons and commutations. I was looking at a chart showing, the number of pardons and commutations and so on that Mr. Trump gave out, relatively few. Barack Obama did a lot, but I saw the number of 8,000 for Joe Biden. That's astronomical. What's going on? Why is he doing this? Is this not an abuse of the presidential pardon? I know it's relatively unlimited, but what is going on with 8,000 pardons and commutations?
Yeah, I think somebody, maybe it's one of the interns that just, got super happy over there, like, hey, let's just pardon everybody, like Oprah hands out, free cars. I mean, it's literally ridiculous. And the pardons that genuinely bother me the most aren't, some of these nonviolent offenders that were apparently in home detention during COVID or something like that. I mean, if you want to commute some of those sentences, fine. I mean, I don't know why that would necessarily be worth presidential attention, but okay. It's more that I think the volume is trying to dilute the impact of the Hunter Biden pardon and probably what's coming before noon on January 20th, which I personally would not be surprised if Biden pardons himself. which has never happened before in U.S. history. But if he pardons himself, his administration, and news reports are suggesting he's contemplating, or he, meaning his handlers, people who were involved in the January 6th committee, people who were involved in the fake Russia collusion hoax against Trump, all of these other people that genuinely were bad actors in terms of just trying to get Trump or perpetuating the Russia collusion hoax, some of those things, to try to undercut actual justice for the DOJ under a Trump administration. And that's really what would be the most concerning, because pardons should not be political. The purpose of the relatively unlimited power was so that a chief law enforcement officer in the United States in the executive branch, which is the president, is the last full stop if the system goes wrong, if there isn't justice. So, for example, if someone like a Daniel Penny, who of course that was state level, not federal, but if that were in the federal court and a jury had convicted him when clearly it was self-defense, and then the appeals don't happen, if he got 20 years or more in prison, I mean, that would be the type of scenario where a president could step in and just say, no, the system has not worked according to justice, and we're going to pardon him. But you're right, it's been absolutely abused.
I still can't wrap my head around how can you pardon somebody who has not even been charged with a crime? I mean, that just seems like a get out of jail card to do any and everything you want to. I mean, that seems odd.
Well, it is, and we should distinguish it, though, that it can't be for anything in the future. So It's not like saying, hey, I'm going to pardon myself for whatever I might do in the future. So it's giving me a license basically to ignore the law. It does have, it's for conduct in the past. So
but Biden pardoned his son Hunter for 10 years, right?
Right, in the past, yeah.
In the past.
January 2014 all the way to December 4th of 2024. And so, yeah, and that was a far-extensive, far-reaching pardon that absolutely covered a lot of the Biden crime family allegations, the Burisma situation, all of that. But moving forward, Hunter Biden may want to reconsider, if he's going to take crack into the White House again, allegedly, which is what I think happened. If it's something in the future, then the pardon wouldn't cover something.
He better do it pretty quick.
Right, he's got about 30 days.
He maybe a New Year's party, but that's about all he's got left over there. That's just great. All right, Jenna, tell us about the podcast that you're doing now and where people can listen.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's called On Demand with Jenna Ellis, and it's an AFR exclusive. So you can go to afr.net and you can click on podcasts and then find it there. And it's called On Demand because we are doing a deep dive into the issues and topics that you want to hear more about on demand. Because one of the things that I love about the morning radio drive time is that we are the first show, live show in the morning that we get to cover the topics, the news of the day, but often then we only have 15 minutes or so to cover some of these stories. So some of the questions and topics, we get to actually do a deep dive with some high-level experts.
Yeah.
We've had members of Congress on. We've had some really good experts. And so this week's episode will come out on Friday, but you can listen to last week's, which was on everything you need to know about the war in Ukraine, and that this is not just Biden's war. It was actually amazing to me to learn from the expert that we had on that has a brand new book on this, just how far back the history of this entire conflict goes with our own U.S. government.
Okay, so that's it's at afr.net, our own website, afr.net. Just click on Jenna's podcast, Jenna's Daily Show, but Jenna's podcast, Jenna. What is it again?
It's called On Demand.
On Demand.
With Jenna Ellis.
Okay.
So, yes,
all right, Jenna, take care. Thank you.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas,
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year, and I hope that you guys all get what you want from Santa.
You're going home to Colorado to visit your folks, right?
I am, and I'm really looking forward to it, and get to see all of my family. My little brother is coming in from Virginia, and we're gonna have a great time.
You get to enjoy the romance of a winter Christmas in Colorado, and then after you get tired of that and tired of your family, you fly back to sunny Florida. And enjoy.
It's a great life, right?
And
Perfect setup.
That's right. All right, take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, so that's Jenna Ellis joining us. Check out her podcast. that we just started the last few weeks here on American Family Radio. Okay, so I'm Tim with Fred and Chris and Ray. Go ahead, Chris, with your next story.
Well, you guys were talking with Jenna about how Biden is handing out pardons and commutations like Oprah handed out cars. A judge who helped orchestrate one of the worst judicial scandals in U.S. history, a scheme to send children to for-profit jails in exchange for kickbacks, was among the 1,500 people whose sentences were commuted last week by President Joe Biden. In a story you can find on afn.net, Biden's decision to commute the 17-year prison sentence of Michael Conahan angered many in northeastern Pennsylvania, including a lady named Sandy Fonzo. Now, Sandy Fonzo's son was sent to jail by this guy, and after his release, her son unfortunately committed suicide. Sandy was on Fox to talk about this very issue, and she said, this judge here, Michael Conahan, he ruined my son's life. Clip 6.
He ruined my son's life, my life. He ruined multiple lives. There's so many kids that have lost their life, not just my son. One of the boys that was 8, Charlie, that's actually in the documentary with us and went around and spoke out about this. He has lost his life since. There's so many kids that are still struggling. I've helped kids get out that got wrapped up in the system that were in. It's just
it's inexplicable. Hold on, stop it. So, okay, explain to me again what the story is with this. So this is a mother,
yes,
of a boy, and how did the judge affect his life?
He sent him to prison. He sent him to a for-profit prison where she said her son just changed emotionally after his time in there. And
he's the one that was getting kickback.
Yes.
This is I've never heard this before. And that's why this judge got a 17-year prison sentence.
How long?
17 years, but Biden is letting him go. This judge, there was actually 2 judges in Pennsylvania. This is where this occurred.
Wait 1 second. Have you heard about this story, Ray?
Not a word.
Okay, go ahead, Ray. Go ahead, Fred.
All right, what these judges were doing, instead of sending them to a taxpayer-funded jail, there was this jail that was set up for profit, private company. These judges started sending their young people would come before them, the juvenile court.
Minors.
And in the case of Mrs. Fonzo, her son was sentenced to 8 months in this for-profit prison for simply being at a party where there was alcohol, okay? So here's what happened. When these judges would send these minors to this for-profit prison, the for-profit prison paid a price, whatever they got for housing these young minors, that the judges then got a kickback, and they got more money the longer the sentences were. It's horrible.
Oh my gosh!
It's absolutely horrible.
Were they state judges? Do you know?
These were juvenile judges.
Where were juvenile in what state?
Northeastern Pennsylvania.
Okay, so they were found out, and then these judges were convicted, and they themselves were sent to prison.
That is correct.
And it must have had something to do with federal prison, because otherwise Biden wouldn't have any authority.
Yes,
if it were a state prison in Pennsylvania, it must have been a federal
I guess
prison.
what he did was a federal crime.
Yes.
So you're telling me Biden let the judges? They had
one of the judges.
One
Michael
of the judges out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Has there been any comment from Biden or the White House why he did this?
No.
Okay.
I don't even know that Joe Biden knows.
I mean, on the surface,
right? Does Joe Biden even know that he did this?
Well, that's a good point.
And I say that not based on his mental faculties and the questions surrounding them, but 1,500 people.
Right.
You know what this sounds like to me? And I don't know anything more about the case than what you've shared, and I did hear something about it yesterday. This sounds like to me, since it's in Pennsylvania. Where is it in Pennsylvania?
In the Scranton area.
This sounds like a friend of the family deal. You know what I'm saying? Because Biden himself is from Scranton.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And Pennsylvania we're talking about. And then, of course, the senator from Delaware. It sounds like to me somebody knows somebody who, you know what I'm saying, who's asking a favor. I don't know. That's what it appears to me.
And this mom, Sandy Fonzo, is so upset. I think we can play this cut. She's upset with Joe Biden because she says everybody in Scranton honors Joe Biden because Joe Biden keeps saying, I'm a Scranton guy. And cut number 4, if we can play that.
Joe Biden came here and campaigned multiple times that he was, Joe Scranton, he was one of us. He knew of our struggles and he cared about our community and our kids and our families. And that is just absolutely not true. He is not one of us. We have an expressway named after him. I have to drive down and look at it every day, the President Biden Expressway and the Biden Street.
Yeah.
That's what I want done. I mean, there needs to be reform of how the overseeing of how these applicants are chosen for these pardons. And what I want to see is his name removed, because that's just, another slap in the face, another injustice on top of all of the grief that everybody in this community has already endured.
That's awful. If I mean, these judges, these two, were there two of them?
There's one of the judges that's still in prison. Conahan, I think, was released around COVID period, and he was at home.
But you're playing with people's lives.
Oh, yes.
These minors,
Oh, yes.
especially, they send them off and the longer they stay, the more money these guys got.
Yeah. The AP story, the Associated Press, one other factor in this story, Conahan, who was the guy who got the pardon from Biden, was a powerful figure in northeastern Pennsylvania before his arrest, regularly meeting for breakfast with a reputed boss of an area mafia family.
Yeah.
This is the Associated Press reporting that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, we had a story on that.
We did. I have shared that on our Today's Issues Facebook page, the AFN story that we've been talking about, as well as the mother, Sandy Fonzo's TV appearance on Fox and Friends.
Yeah. Hey, Ray, I want to go back to this for just a moment. Do you think that RFK Jr. will be confirmed by the Senate?
They're going to quiz him hard on this vaccine stuff, and they should, right? Because he has said, let's say generously, he has said a lot of things. He has been out there on the vaccine issue. I mean, way before COVID, he was out there. So they're gonna ask him. I think his name helps. I think the fact that if he comes back and says, I'm not anti-vaccine, but I'm skeptical about certain things the government has done, and I'm certainly against the mandates that happened during COVID, if he gives solid answers, I think he'll be confirmed.
Yeah, what may come to be a problem for him or may not, he's a smart guy. He's very articulate, but when you've been dealing with one issue as long as he has, by that I mean the vaccine issue.
Right.
He said a lot of things over the last, 2 decades probably. So those senators, especially the Democrats, are going to go, hey, in 1998, you said this on the
right.
on the Joe Blow show in Boston. Mm-hmm. What did you mean? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So he's going to have a long, but he's, like I said, he's a smart guy, so maybe he can handle himself.
I think his response is going to be, my focus is going to be on the additives to food, that sort of thing.
Right.
That's where he's going to say, that's where I'm going to spend my time.
Yeah.
Not on vaccines necessarily.
Yeah, and I think President Trump told him to basically stay in your lane.
Yes.
If you're going to work for me. And RFK smart enough to know, RFK Jr. smart enough to know he needs to stay in his lane.
Yes.
Yeah. Right?
Yes.
Because he is, RFK Jr. is good on some issues from a conservative point of view. And on other issues, he's not. No. So he needs to, stick with what he knows.
Yeah.
But it will be interesting to see him spar.
Oh, yes.
Huh?
He doesn't back down.
Yeah. All right. We will be back with more of today's issues on American Family Radio in 5 minutes. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Man, we have such a culture war against God's ways. I really wish I could make a more positive impact.
If that's you, you can.
AFA President Tim Wildmon invites you to join AFA Action Alerts. Sign up to receive 2 weekly emails with calls to action on foundational family, national, and Christian matters. Prayerfully sign up on the alerts page at afaaction.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Bronson Woodruff. We're continuing to learn more about a teenage school shooter in Wisconsin. Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes said it was a female student who carried out the Monday morning attack.
The shooter has now been identified as 15-year-old Natalie Rupnow, who went by the name Samantha. She was a student at the school, and evidence suggests she died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
This happened at Abundant Life Christian School. Police say shortly before 11 a.m. local time, she opened fire with a handgun during a study hall. A teacher died, a fellow student also died. 6 others were wounded. We're told 2 students remain in life-threatening critical condition. Police say they were in the school within 3 minutes after the first 911 call. A second-grade student made that call. Barbara Wires, Director of Elementary and School Relations at Abundant Life Christian School, said the community is holding on to their faith.
We also have a very strong faith in our community that in spite of tragedy, God is working, and we believe that God is good in everything and that he turns beauty for ashes. I had a number of families who mentioned that to me, that this wasn't a surprise to God and that he's going to do something mighty with it. And so we're holding on to those words and we're continuing to believe and trust in him.
The investigation continues into a motive. We're told the shooter's parents are cooperating with law enforcement. President-elect Donald Trump is vowing to take on the healthcare industry. Here's Madison Allworth reporting from New York City.
President-elect Trump is hoping to bring down the cost of those expensive drugs, and he's saying he's going to do so by going after the pharmacy benefit managers, or as he likes to refer to them, the middlemen. He made a promise yesterday to go after that group.
The horrible middleman that makes more money, frankly, than the drug companies, and they don't do anything except they're a middleman. We're going to knock out the middleman.
PBMs negotiate prescription prices between insurers, pharmacies, and drug makers, and directly reimburse pharmacies for drugs included in their deals. Critics say they have too much influence over costs, and they prioritize drugs that are more expensive to make and make them more money.
A spokesperson for CVS says any policy that would limit PBM negotiating tools would put Americans nationwide at the mercy of the prices set by drug makers. President-elect Donald Trump made many promises for day one as president, promising to secure ceasefire deals in Ukraine and in Gaza, pull out of climate agreements, and close down the border. The president-elect's pick for White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt joined Fox and laid out the agenda for his first day on the job.
Within seconds of his arrival at the Oval Office again to secure the border, to drill, baby drill, to expedite permits for drilling and for fracking all over this country so we can immediately bring down the cost of living.
One of the president-elect's signature promises is to implement sweeping tariffs on Chinese imports. We're told consumers can expect this to likely mean higher inflation and costs for consumers buying Chinese goods. The head of an immigration enforcement think tank says it's a vindictive move on the part of the departing Biden administration to attempt to auction off border wall material so Donald Trump won't be able to use it. AFN's Chad Groening has more.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams met with President-elect Donald Trump's incoming border czar last week, with the Democratic mayor expressing an enthusiasm to work with the incoming administration. Adam told reporters at a brief news conference that he and Tom Homan agreed on pursuing people who commit violent crimes in the city, but did not disclose additional details or future plans. He said, quote, "We're not going to be a safe haven for those who commit repeated violent crimes against innocent migrants, immigrants, and long-standing New Yorkers." Mark Krikorian is executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies.
The meeting the incoming border czar had with the mayor of New York is a good sign, because one of the obstacles to actually getting illegal aliens out of the country and preventing new ones from coming in is that the places that illegal immigrants are likely to go are sanctuary cities and sanctuary states very often. So the fact that New York, the nation's biggest city, is actually willing to talk to Tom Homan about cooperating with him to get criminals out of the city and out of the country is really a good sign.
I'm Chad Groening.
Find more news online from a Christian perspective at afn.net. For American Family News, I'm Bronson Woodruff.
This weekend on The Stand Radio, a prominent neurosurgeon describes the link between what's visible in our brains and how we can shape our response to grief and trauma.
In real time, Jeff, you can see the brain change and improve its function in response to what people think about.
The Stand Radio, Saturdays at 4 and Sundays at 8 p.m. Central on AFR.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Well, we've got some great tours lined up for 2025. So, of course, what do you expect me to say? We got some average tours lined up for 2025? No, I'm going to tell you they're great. And so if you want to go with us, we've got 3 different tours. In June and September, we'll be doing our normal Colonial Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown. And then that'll be back-to-back with Washington, D.C. and Mount Vernon, George Washington's Mount Vernon. So if you want to stay with us for the whole week, you'll see all that when we'll take care of you the whole time. So, or if you want to go on one or the other of those trips. So those are June and September. Perfect weather time for those trips. And then in October, we've got a trip to Boston. Please come to Boston. Well, we're coming. Please come to Boston in October, and that'll be, we're going to see the Freedom Trail, Lexington, Concord, the Boston Harbor, just everything about Boston and the greater Boston area, which is so significant to early American history. We're going to be going there and seeing these sites, and Stephen McDowell, the Providence Foundation, will be on all these tours. He is a historian of some notoriety, and Stephen's written a lot of books. He's going to be answering questions and telling the stories about the people, places, the times and events of Boston and those other places I mentioned too, Williamsburg and D.C. So for information on any of those trips, just go to Wildmon, WILDMON, group.com, WILDMON, group.com, wildmongroup.com, and we got all the information, the price, the itinerary, everything we're going to be doing. Just check it out at wildmongroup.com for D.C., Williamsburg, Boston, 2025. I'm Tim with Fred and Ray. And now Steve Paisley-Jordahl joined us. Good morning, Brother Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Yeah.
Getting over this cold thing, so voice is still a little raspy, but
well. So what do you got? What's your first story?
Let's. I want to throw another theory into the drone mystery. This just coming out of New Jersey. There's a mayor there. His name is Michael Melham. And he is the mayor of a town in New Jersey, and he is saying that they may be looking for something. He may be sniffing something out, these drones. Listen, if you can, to cut 15.
We also know that we have drones that are flying in a grid-like pattern. In my opinion, they're looking for something. What might they be looking for? Well, potentially, we're aware of a threat that came in through Port Newark. Maybe that's radioactive material. There was and there is an alert that's out right now that radioactive material in New Jersey has gone missing on December 2nd. It was a shipment. It arrived at its destination. The container was damaged and was empty. So
okay,
potentially
wait,
we're looking
stop
for
right
that.
there, Mayor, because that's very important information. And that came from a credible source.
That came from the U.S. government.
And so it's missing?
Missing.
And they think it's in New Jersey, or it could be anywhere?
It was lost in New Jersey, in transit. And again, this is just an example of what I think that we're sniffing for. I think we do have the assets that can go up and fly around and sniff things, which is why we're not seeing the uptick we used to see in Belleville anymore. It's kind of moving, but we're seeing alerts that it's happening now in Pennsylvania.
Belleville, New Jersey mayor, Michael Melham. And yeah, that's...
well, that's kind of interesting. He says he's getting his information from the federal government. Why isn't John Kirby or somebody else coming out and saying this, that we're looking for radioactive material that looks like it was stolen from a port in New Jersey? Tell the people that.
Yeah.
Why does it come out through this mayor?
I don't know.
That's pretty dangerous stuff.
It would seem to be. I don't know if they're trying to avert panic. I don't know if this is just some total nonsense. I have no
If
insight.
you were smart, if you were really smart, Mayor, and want to take an opportunity here, I'd say come to our town and watch the drones. You know what I'm saying? Pay $5 to park.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? We got hot cocoa over here. I got some bleachers.
Real hot cocoa.
And now radioactive suits too. You can
Some radioactive suits. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Take advantage of this. It's an economic opportunity.
The thing that really puzzles me about this is that these drones, their lights are on. Their navigational lights, the red and green lights or whatever.
That's a federal law now.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's
red and green, I told you.
If it's some kind of a nefarious government, they'd know how to turn those things off. I mean, they're not hiding is the thing.
Yeah.
So
all right, we've droned out here
Yeah.
today. I think we're ready for another story.
Well, this morning, Representative Barry Loudermilk of the January 6th subcommittee, the Republican subcommittee, studying the January 6th committee.
Oh, we got a committee studying a committee?
We got a committee studying a committee.
This must be a Washington story.
Yes. House Administration Oversight Subcommittee and its chairman, Barry Loudermilk, on Tuesday released an interim report on the January 6th Capitol riot, in which they found this, cut 14.
The committee that's been investigating January 6th just released its final report for this year. It accuses Liz Cheney of tampering with the witness, Cassidy Hutchinson, trying to influence her testimony. It formally recommends that the Federal Bureau of Investigation criminally investigate Liz Cheney when President Trump takes over on January 20th. As you remember, Cassidy Hutchinson was the bombshell witness for the Democrats, claimed that Donald Trump tried to commandeer the presidential limousine, take it to the Capitol. We now know that wasn't true. The Secret Service had already told Liz Cheney it wasn't true. She presented the evidence anyways to the American public, tried to give it credence. There's some other testimony where Cassidy Hutchinson talks about a document she claims she wrote it. She didn't. Someone else wrote it. All of that is laid out in this report. But the headline is Liz Cheney could be facing an FBI criminal investigation based on this information that Congress has transmitted this morning.
There's a lot of strange stuff going on, and then they say they're going to release another report on the pipe bombs at the DNC in Washington here in the next couple of days. Are you guys familiar with that story?
Yeah, that was part of the story that came out.
Yeah.
Well, I think the only thing that's going to happen about January 6th, my prediction is that Trump will pardon all of those that are in prison right now. As far as going after Liz Cheney, that might be a stretch.
I wouldn't do that. I would just drop the whole thing, move on. If I were Trump, I'd pardon all or whatever you call it, pardon, or is there another word for it?
Commute all the sentences.
Commute, whatever you want to say. Just get that behind us and not go after Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney lost her job over this.
Yes, she's finished.
Right? She's finished, yeah. So unless she's going to hook up with Harris for like a Harris Cheney ticket.
Wow, what a team.
Right? Maybe a Harris Cheney ticket coming in 2028.
Oh, Lord, let it happen.
Okay. Well,
I'll give money to that.
That's right. I'll donate.
I'll take a step back in time for just a moment. Liz Cheney was a good congresswoman.
Yes, she was.
From Wyoming prior to the January 6th committee stuff. She had a good record, and I don't know what happened to her on this deal, but I'm just saying it's a shame, quite frankly. What you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What happened to her career because she chose to join up with the Democrats on this January 6th committee. That's my opinion.
I think you're right, but I think what happened to Liz Cheney was she was part of the old guard Republican Party and hated Trump. And she was willing to do anything to denounce, to question his character. And when Nancy Pelosi approached her for joining the Democrat-controlled January 6th committee, I think she was all in.
Yeah.
It was a way to get at Trump.
Yeah.
That's
I seem to recall her being kind of a little in the middle of the road on Donald Trump before January 6th. Not totally, never Trump. She went off the rails after January 6th, though.
She sure did.
So,
well, don't you think don't you think Joe Biden is probably going to pardon her and all the others? I mean, if he's up here in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pardons and commutations, whatever, don't you think he's going to add those people to the list before?
But what was she? I hear you, Ray. But I go back to what I was talking to Jenna about. What do you pardon her for?
In this case, she's being accused of tampering with a witness.
Oh, yes. Okay. That's the first I'd heard of that. Tampering. Who's accusing her of tampering?
The J6 committee, the Republican J6 committee, is accusing her of tampering with Cassidy Hutchinson.
Yeah, I remember that.
When Cassidy's the person that said that Trump tried to overpower the Secret Service in his own limousine to take it back to the Capitol. He says, Barry Loudermilk says that Cheney knew that was false and still put Cassidy Hutchinson up to say it in public.
Yeah, well, Trump's partly responsible for that day, because he's the one that told them, I'm going down there, I'll meet you down there, and then he didn't show up. And had he gone down there, he could have prevented them from going into the Capitol. That's my view. I voted for Donald Trump enthusiastically. I'm glad he won. But that January 6th committee, I agree the January 6th committee was a big bondoogle and a waste of time. It should have been a 1-month deal and wrap it up and say failures were made on the part of Mr. Trump and others, and that should have never have happened, and let that be done. Let that be the end of that investigation. But I'm just saying that President Trump would do well just to end this whole thing and tell the Republicans too, let's quit investigating this. Let's drop it and move on. We got an agenda to deal with. That's my take on it. So going after Liz Cheney anymore, that she'd already lost her job.
Yes.
I said she's already basically been kicked out of the Republican Party for all practical purposes. So I would just say drop it and move on. Is that?
Yep. Yeah. I think
all right, go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Fred, I got to ask you what's going on up in Canada. We've had a finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, has resigned because she's upset with the way that Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau are getting along. And word is Justin Trudeau might be on his last leg there in the Great White North. What's going on?
He's been on his last leg for a long time. The finance minister who resigned yesterday was also the deputy prime minister. She had sharp disagreements with Trudeau on a lot of fiscal matters, including Trudeau wanted to rest the what's called the GST in Canada, general sales tax, for 2 months to give Canadians a bit of a break. But she said that's not going to work. We don't have the money to do it to begin with. So they had a big spat, became very open. But Trudeau's in trouble because of his carbon tax on everything. He's done a disastrous job in the last couple of years. The only party it's kind of like the British Parliament. There's a bunch of parties in Canada, political parties. He has support. He is head of the capital L Liberal Party. Supporting him right now is another party called the New Democratic Party. But even the leader of that party, who is an East Indian man, is grown tired of this. If an election was held today, the leader of the capital C Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, would win. He would be the next prime minister. And you would see a total difference in the relationship between the two countries.
And my question, I guess, to you, Fred, is would you see a loosening of the restrictions that Trudeau put on religious freedom, freedom of assembly, the draconian things that he's seizing of bank accounts? Is that going to let up under?
Oh, absolutely. Pierre Poilievre is, I would say, every bit as conservative as Donald Trump.
Well, we can only hope then, huh?
Yes. So Pierre Poilievre, what he's calling for is an immediate election, like I'm talking immediate, even before the middle of January, and he wants Trudeau out. If Trudeau was to call an election today, he'd be gone.
Wow.
I know, Ray, you would feel better in Kansas City if Canada had new leadership, wouldn't you?
We think about it.
They're closer to them than us.
That's right. Look, I never heard this guy's name. Say his name again, the conservative guy.
Pierre Poilievre.
I liked it. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. I think all Ray's worried about in Kansas City is Patrick Mahomes' ankle.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's right. That should be cut number 13.
That's far more important than any kind of international relations with Canada or any other country.
Any news on that, Ray?
No.
Got
And
a
they
high
got to
ankle
play
sprain.
on Saturday, and they got to play on Christmas. And I'll bet he may miss the Saturday game and hit the Christmas game. I don't know. We're all worried. Everybody's upset here in Kansas City about his ankle.
Been a pretty good year so
Yeah, it has been.
It's been a pretty good decade for Patrick Mahomes, our last 6 or 7 years or whenever he came into the league. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Next story, Steve.
Let me suggest someplace that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy could start getting some Doge stuff going.
Get some what done?
Doge. The Department
Is that
of Government
French? Is that
Efficiency.
French too?
No, actually, it's named. It's kind of a play on a Bitcoin that was a dog kind of. It's
a long story, isn't it, Steve?
I don't want to get into it. Anyway, this is somewhere they could go. Joe Biden, it is reported now, has spent $3 billion in the last 2 years to build electric mail trucks. He got 93 of them built. He also spent $7.5 billion for EV charging stations. He has built 7 of them in 2 years. You think maybe we got some place for Vivek and Elon to start?
Yeah. By the way, related to Elon Musk, I was reading the Bloomberg report, Bloomberg.com. Bloomberg is a news website, more financial news, I guess, is their reputation than anything. So they just reported, Steve, Fred, and Ray, that Elon Musk is by far the wealthiest man in the world. His net worth is $474 billion. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, is number 2 with $251 billion. Wow. So, Elon, and I don't know what you attribute that. Well, his Space Link, his Tesla, I don't know, Twitter/X, Ray, I don't even know if that's making money for him. Maybe it is. But the guy just, is like King Midas.
Yeah. The Starlink, that's close to being a universal, becoming a universal internet system for the whole world. On the cruise ship, I noticed this. The internet that we had down there in the Caribbean was provided by Elon Musk and Starlink. So it's everywhere.
Did you guys hear about a couple of weeks ago, a court stepped in and said that Elon Musk could not get his severance or his pay package from Tesla? Because when he bet on Tesla, when he said he could meet some metrics that everybody thought were totally impossible, but he wanted a big payday if he met them, and he met them, and Tesla wants to give him this money.
How can a judge in America prevent a company from paying somebody for their services? I don't understand that.
Because the amount is $56 billion.
I don't care if it's the amount shouldn't matter. It's the principle. How is that possible?
Well, because they said it's not. The judge said it's not fair to stockholders.
Oh.
But the board
there's some stuff there I don't understand.
Yeah, the board at.
But
Tesla
the board of
Street.
directors voted to.
Yeah.
Well, the board of directors, they're responsive. I know you don't. I'm not arguing with you, Steve.
Yeah,
the board of directors of a company would be responsive to their shareholders too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I don't understand how a judge can control a private business like that.
McCormick, the judge, ruled that Musk and his company failed to prove the huge payout was legally warranted, prompting Musk to take the issue back to his shareholders in August.
So Elon Musk is owed this money.
Yeah.
By who?
Tesla,
and a judge says the company can't pay it. But You think Elon Musk? I think he's still going to make his house note. Don't you, Ray?
Yeah, I think he's got that covered.
You think he's got that covered?
Yeah.
Yeah. He is. He is worth. So the top 5 wealthiest men in the world are Elon Musk, followed by Jeff Bezos, followed by Mark Zuckerberg, followed by Larry Ellison. I've heard that name. What does he do?
Oracle, right?
Oh, that's right, Oracle. And then
I don't know what Oracle does, but that's what he's head of.
It's some kind of internet computer technology stuff. And then some gentleman named Bernard Arnault. So he's a Frenchman. I don't know what. Now, at one time, there was a guy who was the wealthiest man in the world, I thought, who was a telecom guy from Mexico. You remember this fellow?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't see him. I don't see him on here.
Martell's might have got
most of these people, like the top 15, except for one of them, are U.S. citizens. They live in the United States. The Walton family.
Yeah, I was going to ask about them. Yeah.
Okay.
Are they on there?
Well, number 12 wealthiest is Jim Walton, and number 14 is Rob Walton.
Where's John Boy come in?
Who's that?
John Boy.
John Boy Walton.
Oh, I see what you did there,
That's
Steve.
good. That's good. If you're under 50, you don't you don't get that.
Tim, right there. You know what I'm saying?
You know, there was a time these oil sheiks were amongst the wealthiest. Any names?
Oil sheik. Well, let me see if anybody's got the word Jackson on the end of the name, Fred. Maybe they're related to you.
No.
Who are you asking about?
Well, these guys from Saudi Arabia with all the oil.
I don't see any Saudis in the top. Now that doesn't mean that much of them don't have a lot of money. I'm talking about the top, the 50th the 50th wealthiest person in the world is a guy by the name of Jack M.A. from China, and he's worth 35 billion with a B.
He's the guy. He's the TikTok guy, I think, isn't he? Jack Ma.
Maybe. Anyway,
that sounds right.
Anyway, so if any one of us here is going to crack this top 50, we better get started.
Yeah. Better get.
I'm looking around this room.
They're looking for my name. It's
I'm not.
I mean, what do you get these guys for Christmas? you say
That's a good point.
What do you need? What do you need?
So you don't think a $50 Outback gift certificate's going to impress them, do you?
A tie.
A tie. They got more ties than they know what to do with.
Yeah.
Now you could probably get Trump a red tie. He needs a red tie, right?
No. He uses a lot of those.
6 out of 7 days a week he wears
red and blue.
A red tie. But anyway, the point is, in all seriousness, and I mentioned this before, Elon Musk. Well, number one, I think he's the most powerful non-governmental official in the world, and his power, such that it is with the controlling the satellite internet, that's very. It's a lot of power.
He's got his fingers everywhere.
Yeah. So, but he, thank the Lord that he is a patriotic, freedom-loving, relatively conservative man.
Yeah.
He hails from South Africa. He came over to the U.S. His story, but his involvement in the presidential election by him coming out in favor of Trump helped Donald Trump win.
Yep.
And I think Donald Trump knows that and has shown appreciation to Elon Musk. Because Elon Musk, as I said, didn't have to get involved.
No.
His money is secure now. There are other things that motivated him, which we can explore later. But all right, thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Fred.
You bet.
Ray, appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim.
And Brent Creeley, our producer. Let's see, Jenna Ellis was on with us. Chris Woodward was on. And as always, we thank you for listening to today's issues. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Keep listening to AFR, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
As Christians, how can we even begin to impact others when we live in a culture where truth is relative? It all starts with God.